Hi there. This is my third video in a series that looking at the decision-making process for venture capital firms. Today I'm going to deal with some of the techniques that venture capital firms use to evaluate opportunities with individual firms. I think it's worth highlighting about 5 or 6 aspects of that individual investment decision-making process. The first is fit. In a previous video, I touched on the importance of strategy for venture capital firms. Well, one of the first things that most venture capital firms will do will be to look at you against a series of criteria and whether you fit with that strategy. So are you in the right geography? Are you in the right industry at the right stage of development? I'd recommend you take a look at that first video in the series and we touch on that in a little bit more detail. But fit or qualitative analysis is the first thing that most venture capital firms will do. Another thing that many of them do is what we call a market map. What you're trying to achieve with a market map is 3 things. One is, what's the size of the opportunity out there? Is this a growing market? How big is it? And then critically, how achievable is it for the company in which they're investing to get a decent market share of that particular market? The other aspect that they will look at is what are the drivers and constraints in that market? Often nowadays, actually, constraints are more important than drivers, particularly in relation to regulation, and the influence that governments have over that particular market is something that investors will look at and look at closely. The third part of the market map is competition. They will look at your competitors. And what they're trying to achieve with a market map is to position you within the market, get a good understanding of that market, but also compare you against your competitors and see what the unique selling points of your business are. So fit and market map are the first 2 things that most venture capital firms will do. They will also look at the risk of failure. They will look at the key choke points within your business and how likely or unlikely is it that the business will not succeed. It's very difficult to give a full list of kind of risk points that people will look at, but a couple of them were worth touching on. One is critically, they will take a look at your team. They will need to be convinced that this is the right group of people to deliver the strategy as you have described it. They'll also look at your good understanding or not of your client base. They'll want you to give a really good detailed explanation of who your clients are and why they would buy from you. These are a couple of aspects that they will look at, but really it's worth emphasizing to you that when venture capital firms are making a decision, they will look at the risk of failure as a kind of a critical decision point for them. The fourth aspect is modeling. Taking the qualitative information from the first 3 steps, they will try to convert that into a series of numbers that will then give them a sense of what their likely return is for their investment. We at Trinity Bridge really emphasize that the process is often more important than the answer. What I'm trying to get to here is that when it comes to modeling, what you would like to achieve is to have a conversation, a dialogue with the investor around the key assumptions in that financial model. And the purpose of that dialogue and conversation is A, to convince them that you understand the market very well and that these assumptions are reasonable, but also critically that it's achievable, that this is the right team to achieve those assumptions. Once again, my emphasis when it comes to models are that if you do it right, you will get to the right answer. So don't be too concerned, initially at least anyway, about whether you've got the right answer in terms of the value for your business. Rather use it as a template or to use it as a mechanism to engage with the investor and have a conversation around the reasonableness of the assumptions that you made in that model. The 5th aspect that I'd like to touch on is sensitivity analysis. Once a venture capital firm has built their model, they will look at least 3 scenarios. 1 is a base case, 2 is overperformance, and 3 is underperformance. And what they're looking at really, the critical one to some degree, is the underperformance. In the event of the business not doing as well as they thought it would do, does it still fall into that category of businesses that still will have a decent return for them? Does it fall into that category of a business that will still be a success even if it doesn't succeed as well as the model suggests that it would. So sensitivity analysis is absolutely critical when it comes to the decision making by venture capitalists. The final aspect I'd like to touch on is a very obvious one, but one worth repeating. And that's when it comes to making a decision about an individual investment, really what a venture capital firm is doing is balancing risk and reward. Obviously, as a potential target firm for a financial investor, you will want to emphasize the reward aspect of it. You will want to sell them on the size of the market and your ability to deliver against your strategy. Rightly so too. But I think it's very important that you also deal with the risk side of the scenario for them. You help them identify where the risks are for the business, and you critically point to the mitigating factors, the mitigating steps you've taken to address those risks. It will show maturity in business, and it will prove to them that you're the right management team to deliver. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's the third in a series of videos about decision-making process with venture capital firms. In the previous two videos, which I'd encourage you to take a look at, I discussed strategy and portfolio construction. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, available if you want to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I'd be very happy to engage in a dialogue. Thanks again. One more video to come next week. And once again, thanks very much.